Welcome back to Five Friday Feedback. This is where we recap Monday's episode while also doing a viewer mailbag and a win of the week coming up very soon. So thank you for clicking on today's episode, and let's get right into it. Today we are discussing a little bit of analysis paralysis, discussing a little bit of how when you have too many options, you choose nothing. Maybe you've been in that situation yourself. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I've never been in that situation. Let me tell you, have you ever been hungry with a significant other, trying to choose a restaurant, trying to see what to cook in the fridge? I know you have. So today we are kind of just recapping what we talked about on Monday and expanding a little bit more. But I want to start with a question we left off on Monday, and that's, how do you deal with a never-ending to-do list? Chris, welcome in. Happy Friday. How was your week? And how do we deal with this never-ending to-do list?
Yeah, week's been good. Still in the process of moving, but things are coming along. So when you were talking on Monday's episode, you were saying like your fear, the thing you've been concerned about is at the time of death, when you eventually pass away, hopefully a very long time from now, there will still be a to-do list of things that you didn't accomplish. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, but I want to rehash it again. The difference between an infinite game and a finite game. Life, knowledge, things to do, growth is an infinite game. You can't win that. There is no point at which it ends. So if life is an infinite game, but we have a finite game in that eventually we will die, I don't know when it's going to happen, but each one of these people listening to this podcast, everyone you know will eventually not be here anymore. Well, then how can life be an infinite game? Well, the paradox is that life is an infinite game, but your life is a finite game. So that never-ending to-do list, it's never going to end. That's an infinite game. There's always more things to be done. So the goal is to try to pass on your legacy to other people so that they can continue that to-do list, so that you will work hard to plant trees to the shade of which you will never sit, so that the future can pick up the torch from where you picked off and continue on in that journey. If your goal is to die with nothing to do on your to-do list, to feel like you've won the game, well, you're never going to be fulfilled. You're never going to be able to get to that point because you're trying to win a game that is unwinnable, that is infinite. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. One of the things that kind of spoke to me when you were saying that was that we really need to make peace with ourselves, with our demons, with the idea that failure is going to happen, that we're going to end the day and stuff was not finished. We're going to end the life and things still need to be done. And I think it's really difficult for, speaking for myself, to wrap my head around that concept of, I did as much as I could. Now I have to pass the torch. It's a weird thing to imagine your mortality at such a young age. And, I don't know how long I get, it might go today, might go tomorrow, might go in 100 years, with the advancements in modern medicine, we don't know, right? Maybe they'll turn me into a robot, a cyborg. I don't know. Be kind of cool, but I'm good. Anyway, back to you, Chris. I know you had your hand up. You kind of had a thought-provoking something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I think that all of life, all human beings fear that inevitability of them not being there. Even trying to contemplate, what would a day look like without me there? What would it be like if I didn't exist? The brain can't do it. Because even if you would vision, you can say I could make up a world where my wife wakes up and there's no one next to her anymore and all these things happen. You're still there viewing it. You can't view the world without you in it. You have to be somewhere. Even if you're not there, you're ephemerally there to see things. You can't do it. So we all are so afraid of that inevitability. But the only thing that's guaranteed in life is that one day you will not be here. You might be here on a different plane. You might be here in a different dimension. I don't know any of that stuff. But I do know that you won't be here in the same form that you are currently. There's an old Stoic philosophy that do and say, I can't remember how it goes, but it's basically make the world the way that you want to. Do your work today because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Too many of us, we go through life saying, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow. Do today as if tomorrow doesn't exist. Because for all you know, it doesn't. When you every night that you go and you tuck your kids into bed, meditate on that. This could be the last time that I tuck them into bed. So maybe I shouldn't just try to rush through this so I can get back to watching Netflix on my phone. These moments, each moment in life is precious, and you don't realize how precious they are until something like death comes in and takes it away so that it can never be attained again.
I love that. I can't even explain to you how much I love that quote. Do today like tomorrow doesn't exist. What an ethos. Beautiful, beautiful way to live. Just an absolute beautiful way to live. On Monday's podcast, we talked a lot about simplicity, living a little bit more minimally. And maybe minimalism isn't for you. Totally understand, right? Totally understand. A lot of great stuff out there. A lot of great deals out there. Totally understand. But it's the why. Oftentimes, we collect so much stuff that the stuff starts to own us. Every time there's a street here in Arizona, it's Bell Road, right? You drive down it, there's a bunch of car lots, right? Bunch of cars, right? Nissan, Toyota, BMW, for sale. Right? And every time I drive by it, I always think that these are almost like, and I don't like to say this, but this is what goes on in my head, but I'll share it, but they're like slave contracts, right? You get them and, well, hey, now you got to get a job to pay off this car, right? You got to get full coverage, right? And it's depreciating in value. So what's the plan here? You're going to drive it till the wheels fall off in 15 years, 20 years? You're going to trade it up, lose money on it? Like what's the idea? And stuff like that bothers me because I don't want my possessions to own me. I want to own my possessions outright. But it becomes a very scary place when those things own you. And we talked, like I was saying earlier, we talked a little bit about minimalism and how, like, Warren Buffett eats the same thing for breakfast every day. Steve Jobs used to wear the same outfit every day. But why? Why? Life is to be lived. I'm sure Ralph Lauren has a new summer set out right now. I'm sure there's other food than just the McDonald's that Warren Buffett eats every day. But it's the decision fatigue. It's knowing that's like, hey, this isn't something that I have to worry about today. It just is, and we continue on to the stuff that's important. And what I love about those two men is they understand their purpose. They understand their why. And that's something that most of us, myself included, struggle with. Why? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Who are we? Who am I? Right? It's the difficult questions in life. Stuff that can't be answered on a Friday episode of a podcast, maybe Monday episode. I don't know. No, it's a deeper understanding of yourself. I mean, literally, our podcast should be changed to Know Thyself because that's what I'm going to say. But the more you know yourself, the more you can better understand yourself and realize what's important. I have a beautiful drone sitting right here. I love this drone. It's so much fun. Use it to make videos, right? But at what point is it a burden? At what point does it no longer serve its purpose? Is it critical in my mission? I think it's important to always find what's critical to your mission. But in order to find what's critical to your mission, you have to understand your mission and why it's important to you. How do you start that journey though, Chris? For someone they're just tuning in, they're just a regular guy. They're not philosophical like this. They're not looking at these bigger pictures. They're not having these, huge ideas. They're just being exposed to the why question. How do you find yourself? Because I know there's a few versions on how to find yourself. David Goggins talks about one version. It's like, you want to find yourself, and really understand who you are, go for a run, go do a big race, right? And when things start going bad, you'll really start to understand who you are. But from your experience, Chris, how do you, I don't want to say find yourself, but how do you take that first step into that deep and lifelong journey?
I think most people, they come to it in their own time. And there are not many people that do it out of a sense of everything's going well, I'm just going to go ahead and try to do this. It unfortunately most often comes out of deep, deep pain. And that pain might be the loss of a spouse, the loss of a parent, the loss of a job, any of those big events, maybe the birth of a child, those so positive things too. But those big events where your world gets shaken up, the snow globe that you live in gets turned upside down and shooken until that you have to look inwards. I know for me, when I started kind of thinking more about philosophy, I thought that that's for old men in ivory towers to sit around and talk about, well, what is why? Like, what is thinking? And like all this stuff. And I was like, those just dumb questions. I'm trying to put food on the table. Like, I have bigger issues to deal with. And it is from a place of luxury to be able to sit here and have a podcast and talk about the philosophy of financial independence, to talk about the philosophy of life. Because if you're mired in the day to day, just trying to make it, you don't have the ability to do that. Your brain can't use the calories to do that when you're worried on like, where's my next meal going to come? So sometimes in life, you are going to have those moments where you are isolated, where you are alone, where things are thrown around, the snow globe has been shaken. And in those moments, what most people do is they try to distract themselves. Let me get on TikTok. Let me get on Instagram. Let me go and drink. Let me try to do something so that I don't have to be alone with myself, alone with these thoughts, these demons, these fears. That's that moment, though, where people need to go inward. All of man's discontent comes from his inability to sit in a room alone. It's that sitting alone, it's that being alone that is the hardest. And sometimes you don't even have to do it alone. Sometimes you can do it with a trusted partner or a therapist or somebody to help you go deep and try to uncover something about yourself. But for me, the way I've always kind of explained it is it starts with asking why. It starts with being willing to ask the questions. And not just ask the questions to other people, because that's easy. Asking the question to yourself. And for some people, it's journaling. For some people like myself, it's talking it out. That's one of the reasons we have the podcast, but also on my phone, I have notes of me talking to my phone and just kind of thinking a stream of thoughts and just trying to, and actually speaking it out, not just having it in my head. Because if you notice the way you think, you give yourself too many mental outs when you're thinking. Stuff gets hard, you just switch to another topic. It's very easy. But when you're actually saying words, or even better, writing it down, you realize that you can't give yourself those mental outs the way that your brain works. Because your brain's chaotic. It's jumping from place to place so quickly that you feel like it's a cohesive narrative that made sense that way. I went from there to there. But if you were to write it down or speak to somebody like it, they'd be like, hey man, you're like manic. You're all over the place. I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. That's the way our brains work. So slowing down, taking that moment to reflect and to be with yourself by yourself is that gift that, keeps on giving. That's the way that you start to get philosophical to look. So there is no easy answer. It just takes time. And unfortunately, it often takes great, great pain or sorrow in order to start that. I wish it didn't. I could sit here till I'm blue in the face telling people to start this early before bad times come, because they will come. And everyone says, well, not for me. Death isn't coming for me. These things aren't coming for me, or I'll deal with it when I get there. And it's so much easier to deal with it in the good times because everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yeah. Let's get a little Mike Tyson quote there. One of the things, Iron Mike, baby, Iron Mike. So one of the things that can kind of move you forward a little bit more, a little bit quicker, is relying more on your systems and decisions, automating as much as you can. And in today's society, it's never been easier. It's never been easier. A little hack, one that I use quite often, is when I don't know what to eat, what to make, right? Obviously, the goal is to plan out the week's meals beforehand, right? But when I'm in that planning phase, I don't know what to make. I'll take a picture of my refrigerator, the freezer, and the pantry. I'll put it into ChatGPT with the ingredients I have. I need meals for the week, and it gives me recommendations based on what I have. I love it, and I think it's very important to rely on these tools that we have, but it's so important to not rely too much. I can't stand figuring out what to make for dinner. I can't stand it because I usually do it when I'm hungry, and I can't stand that. So that's kind of why I build the menu a week in advance, right? So I don't have to do that. Same with my meal prepping, right? For lunch, breakfast. Same with, one thing I do enjoy is where I work, I wear almost the same thing every day. So I don't have to worry about that. Takes it out of the equation. Right? It speeds up my day. Maybe that's not something you can do for your life, but I think I think you could. I think you can, right? It's taking those small, mundane tasks out of focus and keeping you focused on what's really important. And it's so important to preserve mental capital. So important. Those with kids know this. Those with troubles know this. Chris, you had something?
I know that you said you take that effort, you put it into food. What am I going to eat? And that saves you so much mental energy and it frees you up for the things that are more important. Not that eating isn't important, but it frees you up for the things that you value the most. Why can't we do the same thing with our money? It just takes a little bit of time on a Sunday or a Saturday or even once a month to be like, hey, when this money comes in, I know this much is going to go here, this much is going to go here, this much is going to go to savings, this much is going to go to investments, blah, 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 blah. Now, of course, in life, just like with your meal planning, things are going to come up. Family's going to swing by the house. Hey, I want to take you to dinner. You don't go, oh, no, I can't do that. It's not within my plan. You allow life to have its vicissitudes. You allow life to have its ups and downs, and you plan to the best of your ability. But too many of us go through life not planning at all and just hoping it all works out. It's all going to work out if I just ignore it long enough. And unfortunately, it has worked out very seldom that works out for people. We need to take that time to try to better ourselves, to try to learn, to grow, to take just a second, ideally more than a second, but a second is at least enough time to at least start the process of saying, how do I want my things to flow? How can I simplify this as much as I can so that I can free myself up to focus on the things that really matter? Because I can guarantee you, someone who even is like as a financial professional, who is in money all the time, if I was stuck just in this all the time, and my wife's like, hey, Chris, I want to hang out tonight. So then I'd be like, I can't do it. I'm just too tired. And now I've put something, my family, as less important to me than my money, as less important to me to eating, as less important to me to all these things. And you need to figure out your values. What's the most important thing? And where am I going to put most of my mental energy, the bandwidth that I have towards these things? If you think of it like a Wi-Fi router, anything connected to that router is going to take up a little bit of the bandwidth. So whatever you plug in hard Ethernet, that's going to take up majority of it. So you want to make sure that that thing, that computer, whatever, right now we're podcasting, I have an Ethernet cable connected to my computer. That also means that if I do that, my cell phone has a little bit less power, that my wife's cell phone has a little bit less power, that our Chromecast, our Apple TVs have a little bit less of the bandwidth. And that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make because this is the highest priority to me right now. But if you go around putting money or food or whatever it is as the highest thing that's getting all the bandwidth, and then you leave the leftovers for your family, for your friends, for the things that you say are the most important thing to you, you can say whatever you want, but I'm going to go off of your actions. Words mean nothing compared to actions.
So true. It's true. So I hope you guys are taking great action towards your purpose, towards finding what that purpose is. I hope you're not standing still. I hope you're at least moving. Doesn't matter the direction. Just make it a good direction, right? So with that being said, that's going to finish off our recap portion of the podcast, and we're going to be going on to our viewer mailbag. For those that don't know, this is the part of the podcast where we have someone from the community write in and we give our advice, give our 2 cents, and see if we can help guide them in a better direction. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Rebuilding after losing everything. That is the header of today's mailbag. Howdy, Fi guys. First off, I want to thank you both for the work that you guys are doing. Your show has been a much needed source of motivation and clarity as I try to reset financially after a tough couple of years. I'm writing in to share my story and hopefully hear your perspective. I'm currently 29, married with 3 kids, and the sole earner of our family of 5. And it's been busy. I work for the federal government. And last year, we've made what we thought was a smart career and life move. I accepted a promotion that required us to relocate out of state, and it looks like a great opportunity. It looked like a great opportunity on paper, but it ended up being a terrible fit, both professionally and personally. We sold our home and used the $75,000 of equity as a down payment on the new house in Florida. Last year, it became clear to us that we needed to get out. bad work culture, poor environment for the family, and it's just not it for us. By chance, I landed an interview back near our hometown and got the job. We decided to move back knowing we'd likely lose some money selling so soon, but we couldn't have predicted how much we'd actually lose. The Florida real estate market fell just as we listed our home. It sat on the market for months with no serious offers. Meanwhile, we're burning through our savings paying a mortgage in Florida and rent in our home state. The mortgage is at 6.5%. We finally took the first decent offer we got to stop the financial bleeding. But between the loss on the sale, the realtor fees, living expenses, we wiped out our savings that we had worked so hard to build over the last few years. We are now starting over. Thankfully, we avoided major debt besides truck payment, but emotionally, it's been rough. My salary is $139,000, which is decent, but with 3 kids and the cost of living, it doesn't go as far as it used to. I'm currently saving $600 to $800 a month for short-term goals and trying to rebuild retirement savings too, but I can't help but feel way behind. I'm grateful for the job, for the VA loan eligibility, and for a chance to rebuild, but I can't shake the weight of the setback. I guess my question is, have you ever gone through something like this, or have you talked with others who have? And how long did it take to start feeling financially and emotionally stable again? I appreciate all that you do and looking forward to hearing your thoughts. From the market crashed, my plans went bust, now I rebuild because I must. Interesting. 3 kids and a wife. Wild. At 29. Wild.
Yeah.
That's
going fast.
Going fast. That's like I feel like we're back in the 50s
military
or something.
life.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
that military life.
I guess so. Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. So it looks like they got a VA loan. Back in the hometown. That's cool. Back where he belongs. I love that. Yeah, selling a house is, oftentimes people think that, hey, you're selling a house, you must be making a profit. It's like, no. Realtor fees, closing cost fees, inspections, and all sorts of other crazy stuff. It really sucks a lot of that profit out, which is very unfortunate. But seems like they're back in their hometown, making a good chunk of change. Now, I don't know exactly where that is. When I think hometown, I think like small town America was what I think hometown. I don't know. Maybe I hope it's not like New York City or anything like that, because 130,000 would be quite difficult. From what I've heard, it would be quite difficult in New York City. But I don't know, Chris. What do you think is going on here? What kind of advice can you bring to the table? I know you've dealt with this professionally with some of your clients, I'm sure. So what do we got?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, before we even get to that, I just want to say, this is why it's so important to plan for a rainy day. Like this person, they put in here that thankfully they didn't go into major debt. They avoided a lot of this because they planned ahead, because they took time out of their schedule beforehand to think, what happens if everything doesn't go right? Too many of us with our financial lives, with our life in general, we go through saying, hey, when everything works out perfectly, this is how the plan's going to flow. And unfortunately, the plan never flows the way that you want it to in your brain. There's always setbacks. There's always things. So this person, by planning ahead, by having savings, by living off of less than they were making for a good amount of time, they were able to weather this storm. Because I don't know when those storms are coming, but I know those storms are coming for all of us in every one of our lives. So first of all, I just want to say a kudos to our writer for having that, for being able to set that up a long time ago so that they could do that. Another thing that kind of I want to talk about is, you mentioned it. So many people think like, well, real estate's always a great investment. Like it always goes up. It's never not worked out for people. Well, this is just another clear example that, yes, it is a great asset and it is an investment. And all investments are inherently risky. All investments, there are different shades of risk. There's some random meme coin to like real estate. They're not even in the same ballpark. You can call them both investments in quotation marks, but they're completely different things. That does not mean, do you say that it often goes up? To it often comes up. Unfortunately, it becomes in people's brains. It always goes up, and that's not the way that the world works. There's always going to be moments of wax and wane. Things go up, things go down, and unfortunately, this person got caught in the down cycle. So, have I experienced this myself? Yes, I have experienced this myself, and I've also worked with people who experienced this themselves. From what it sounds like, you're sitting in a relatively good position. I know that that sounds shitty of me to say, especially with you saying like I feel so bad, but you're able to save $600 to $800 a month for your short-term goals. I know you want to rebuild the retirement savings, and you're only 29 years old, man. You have time. And there's something that comes up. It feels like in every Five Friday feedback, but I can't help but feel like I'm way behind. Where is that coming from? Who are you comparing yourself to? Because to me, it sounds like you have a stable job, a family of three, a home that you're renting. Who are you basing yourself off of? Your grandpa back in the 30s where he was able to buy a house right out of high school? Yeah. Somebody on TikTok? Do you really know everyone's financial issues? Because what you mainly do is you look at your neighbors, you're like, man, they just seem to have everything together. Just from looking at the front of the house, I know that they're financially stable. They have all these things. Most people, unfortunately, are living their life. The moment that something went wrong, they would have crumbled. Bankruptcy, moving back in with their parents. You were able to make it through for months while things were going poorly because of the hard work that you put in over time, because of the thought that you put. And that probably comes from your military background of having a contingency plan and a contingency plan to that contingency plan. When things go wrong, because they never will go wrong, what is our next course of action? Where else can I move and turn? So the biggest question you asked is, how long does it take to start feeling financially and emotionally stable again? It sounds like you can do it right now. The feelings of feeling emotionally stable, feeling financially stable, those are just feelings and they're ephemeral. They're going to pass. Right now, it sounds to me like you're focusing on just the negative. And both things are there. Both handles you can pull from. You can focus on the negative on, I used to have all this and everything was great and now I'm down here. Or you can say, wow, look at how good of a situation I'm in. I was able to sell the house. I have some savings. I'm not in much debt. We have a place that we're renting. I'm going to work out. There's ways to get through this. So when do you start feeling it? The moment that you choose to start feeling financially, emotionally stable again. If you sit there and wait for this feeling to magically hit you like a light bulb, you might be waiting for a long time, but you can choose to consciously say, I feel good. And to tell yourself every day, hey man, we're in such a good situation. Like, look at this. I'm back home with my family. I'm near my parents or whatever. Maybe my kids are near their grandparents. I'm near my childhood friends. All of these things are true. It's your brain that's choosing to focus on the one thing that went wrong. You moved for a job. It didn't work out. That sucks. That's life. What you did is you fell in love with the story of I moved to Florida. Everything works out. We stay here for a long time. I bought the house and it all works out. That story isn't reality though. And too many of us go through life railing at the world or railing at the universe, the cosmos, for not following the script that we gave it in our brain. We get mad at our partners, get mad at our neighbors, get mad at society for not acting the way that we thought they should act. They acted the way that they did. So rather than being mad at the world, at the cosmos, at everything, you have to change the script and say, oh, the problem isn't that I had this thing of what I wanted to happen and it didn't change. The problem is that I had unreal expectations to what actually did happen. So I can't change what actually did happen. The only thing I can change is how I'm going to react to it. How the story that I'm going to give it. Because these two things are true. You can say, this is the worst decision ever. I lost so much money. This is so stupid. Or you can say, yeah, I took a jump. It didn't work out. This is part of life. Now I'm back home. My family's safe. I have 3 beautiful kids, a loving wife. I have a job. We're stable. And I get the chance to rebuild. I have the opportunity to rebuild. How lucky am I? So I hope that you choose to pull from the right handle. Obviously, there's probably stuff I don't know. You wrote a lot in here, but I don't know everything. So continue to work on what you're working on. This is not a race. You're not trying to beat somebody out. You're 29 years old, bro. You have so much time. You're doing really, really well. Most people aren't even thinking about this stuff until they're like in their 50s or 60s, maybe late 40s. So just keep working at it. I don't know who you're comparing yourself to, but compare yourself only to you and where you were yesterday, where you are right now. Don't compare yourself to where you were before buying the house, because that person is gone. Compare yourself to who you are right now. It'll get a little bit better tomorrow. Not asking you to go from where you are right now to being a multimillionaire. I'm only asking for 1% better.
Yeah.
And then after you get that 1%, you can choose to do another 1% or to stay right where you are. Either way, we support you. Anything, Dom?
No, I have nothing. That's beautiful. That's perfect. Perfect. I hope that all that helps. I think that helps more than just the person writing in. I think a lot of people feel like they're left behind. Like you said, it's a common theme of, man, I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. It's such a common theme. And like you said, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. How we can get better today. Because we don't know. We don't know. It's like the quote that we said on Monday. Pull it up real quick. No, you never know if tomorrow is coming, right? Let's see. Maybe I don't have the quote written down. It was the quote about how we don't know if tomorrow exists. We do know that today exists. So act today as if tomorrow doesn't exist. And if tomorrow doesn't exist, we're not going to be comparing ourselves to our neighbors, Joe Schmo, or our friends. Enjoy the day, guys. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the day. That is all that I have. I have nothing to add. I have nothing to add to that one. We're going to be moving on to our win of the week. But before we do, if you guys ever want to write into us, feel free to email us at thefiguysvideopodcast@gmail.com or on our website, thefiguyspodcast.com. So with that being said, Chris, what is your win of the week?
For sure. And just, the website is thefiguys.com. Like we got the real domain. But my win of the week is, now that we're back in San Diego, we have, over the past week of, being so tired from all of the work we do every day, we've been able to try a lot of new restaurants. So it was something that was really important to my wife and I, that we just didn't go to the same restaurants that we knew were good, that we tried new places. And I get to say that every place we've tried, like this past week, has been really, really good. So we have a lot of new places that when people come and ask where to go, we got to be like, oh, you should go here, 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 and here. There's been quite a few places that have just been awesome. So it's so nice to be in a place. Not that Phoenix's food isn't good, just compared to San Diego, it's like not as good.
There's a lot more places in San Diego that are better, I would think.
Yes.
It's like a lot more condensed and a more, I can't wait to try it. It's going to be some good food out there. Heck yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's a pretty good win of the week. My win of the week is that we had a great recording this week on Monday and on Friday, and things are good. Things are good. There's not like one thing that stuck out to me this week besides recording was awesome, but things are good. So that's good. And while there might be a fire around you, as long as you keep the mind right, looking at the right stuff, keeping it framed properly, having a great attitude, nothing can take you down. It's like that saying about boats. I don't know if you know about that saying about boats, but the only way to sink a ship is for the water to get inside. So if the water doesn't get inside, it can't exactly sink. So with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing week. If you enjoyed today's episode, let us know. We'd love to hear. Whether that's the comments, whether that's a thumbs up, whether that's sharing it with a friend. We always appreciate that. We always appreciate that. But yeah, with that being said, I'm Dominic. He's Chris. We're the Fi Guys, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Later, guys.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.